BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. We're live here in Salt Lake City at Broadcast House, talking some BYU football. Every Monday night, 6 to 7, we're taking your phone calls, 801-575-8255. This is the platform, the voice of Cougar Nation can be heard on this show every week during the BYU football season. And the Cougs are 2-0, 18-15 win over SMU. And yes, it was not the prettiest game, but man, you got to be happy with a win, Matt.
Yeah, I guess. I think you do have to be happy, but there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to analyze, and we'll be doing it for the next hour here on Cougar Nation. Mitch mentioned the phone line. If you want to text us, you can do that too, 57500. And for those of you on the live stream, YouTube, we got video for you, baby. You can comment as well, and we'll get to those comments as they come in on the YouTube stream. But, Mitch, let's start things off with our takeaways from the 18-15 win.
Cougar Nation takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
All right, our takeaways. Gosh, it's hard to summarize it in just a couple. There were so many takeaways. But my biggest takeaway, Mitch, was that defensive performance was a Mount Rushmore-type performance during the Kalani Sitake era. I'm having a hard time thinking of three better defensive performances than that. You get multiple turnovers, multiple red zone turnovers, and that performance gives you hope that regardless of what the offense does, that you can exceed expectations because they were so good getting after the quarterback, creating turnovers. That was a defensive gem, and that's something to be encouraged about going forward.
I loved seeing the defensive success for BYU. It was great to see because you're right. This was one of the best performances we've seen from a Kalani Sitake coach team on the defensive side of the ball, and to hold SMU to no touchdowns on their home field was an impressive feat. Now, the stat about SMU scoring 54 points per game and that 9-game home winning streak, that was a little bit overblown because this SMU team is not as high-powered offensively. They're just not. I know they got good personnel, but I'm telling you, what we've seen from that group, they're not what they've been in the past, but still, you don't take away this moment, this stage for this BYU team that's still trying to find its identity and piece that together on the field and prove it in actual games. Huge win for this team. And BYU's defense, I think the execution was great. They just look fast, too. I was talking to Tanner Wall today in the press conference, and I asked him about, that speed that they're showing. And I just feel like this team, their understanding of the playbook, what Jay Hill wants out of this defense, it's allowing them to be, highlighting their instincts rather than overthinking it. They're just playing loose, and they don't have the weight of the world on their shoulders. BYU as an underdog is always a great spot, and that defense just kind of embodies that, how loose they're playing right now.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses, though, from the 18-15 win, and one aspect of the game that's really weighed me down since Friday night, Mitch. This is another takeaway of mine. That third down offense was putrid. 2 of 13. That's not going to win you many games in the Big 12, if at all. That right now they're ranked 100th in third down conversion percentage. That's bad. That's really bad football, Mitch. And in that second half alone, they had 4 3-and-outs. They actually had 5, but the last one was, kneeling the time away, so I'm not going to penalize them for that. But 4 3-and-outs in the second half alone. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care who the running backs are. If you cannot sustain drives, if you cannot have time of possession, it's going to be very difficult to win football games. Now, thank goodness the defense came to play. Thank goodness the defensive havoc was where it needed to be. And thank goodness that the defensive secondary was able to produce red zone turnovers to give the ball back to BYU's O. But if this is what the offense is going to be going forward, I'm having a hard time dreaming about a bowl game this winter, quite frankly. And so it's got to be better.
It does have to be better. And my second takeaway is that the quarterback position has to improve. It regressed in week 2. And I give Jake credit for ultimately getting enough done on the offensive side to put BYU in a position to win that ball game. That 4th and inches play call where they option pitch to Miles Davis, it worked. And Jake deserves credit for calling the audible into that play call and making that play work. But the execution, how he performed, his decision-making, it leaves much to be desired.
Yep.
And it leaves you feeling like this BYU defense is good enough, clearly, to get you to a bowl game. Them alone, they could probably put this team in a position, I don't want to say, this extreme, but maybe Iowa-like, where it can work, where you can be a defensive team and win ball games. That's not BYU's DNA, but and it's not the ideal route, in my opinion. But this defense, I feel, is good enough where they're going to be solid this whole year. But the quarterback position has got to get better. And if the quarterback position has some success, maybe this team could be an 8-win team, maybe 9. Like, you're looking at this schedule in the month of September. Are you afraid of Baylor and Kansas State and Wyoming? I'm honestly not. Kansas State looked very underwhelming against Tulane. Late night game in Provo. BYU is great in those spots. Why can't BYU start 5-0? Well, they might not, because the quarterback play is going to cost them eventually in some of these games, and you got to get that right. And that's where a lot of our conversation tonight centers around. What Cougar Nation do you need to see from Jake Retzlaff this week to feel good about him going forward and this quarterback play? Let's get out to the phone line, 801-575-8255. Andy from South Jordan, you want to weigh in on Jake Retzlaff?
Andy?
I think we've seen – can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. I think we've seen strokes of brilliance from Retzlaff, including in the last 2 games last season, even though they were losses. I think he showed some great potential, and I don't want to say we've seen the best of him yet. But I was kind of wanting to pose a question of, would it be smart to play Bohannon, not to take away from Retzlaff, because I think even these tougher games are great learning lessons for him, like to not throw a ball when you're getting tackled. Seemed to be 2 interceptions. His 2 interceptions were kind of in those kind of moments, but would it be smart to play Bohannon where he hasn't played a snap of football in a long time? Would we – I don't think we'd want to play him cold going into the Big 12. Would we? I don't know. I think it would be smart to get some good game reps, some passing, some actual driving the ball down the field from Bohannon so we have a good feel of our quarterbacks. I don't know.
Thanks for the call, Andy. Appreciate it. It's an interesting debate to have. Did Jake do enough to keep being the quarterback, or do you want to see what you have from Gary? To me, it is hard to tell someone that's 2-0 and engineered a game-winning drive that you're losing your job. So I think from my perspective, you got to start with Jake.
Yeah.
But if there's another costly turnover, I do want to see Gary. I think every season is becoming more and more precious because of the money and the expectations and everything that goes into college football. You got to win now. Coaches have to win now. Aaron Roderick's talked about this. We don't look at the future. We look at the now. And if Jake is not going to be able to perform at a high level, you do need to see what you have in Gary. I'm not worried about throwing him in there cold. He's a vet. He's played in a lot of college football games. He's won some big college football games. And if this is what you're going to keep getting from Jake, Mitch, 2 turnovers a game, you have to find out what Gary can do.
This was Kalani Sitake on Jake Retzlaff and how they still feel about him going forward.
Yeah, we felt good about him and as our quarterback. We have to be able to find a way to fight through it, and it's hard to play the game when you're just taken out if mistakes happen. I mean, we knew that mistakes happen in football. We got to rally around guys and allow them the chance to redeem themselves.
And he's got another chance this week, and I fully expect that Jake Retzlaff will be that first quarterback to take the snap against Wyoming, but if he has disastrous mistakes, I feel like there's got to be this understanding that it's okay for 1 week to plug in Gary Bohannon. Let's just say, Jake Retzlaff is your permanent starter unless it just gets, bad play after bad play. If Jake Retzlaff is a starter, it's okay just for one game, like he doesn't have it one day, and go to Gary Bohannon and then reset the deck and have him compete the following week. And I bring that up because last year, Kalani Sitake said in the month of November when Keaton Slovis, there was a case of, is he going to play? Is he still banged up? It was always, they got to compete in practice. They got to win their job every single week. Every day in practice, you got to win your job. And I feel like that should be applied here for Jake, that, okay, yes, he's the starter right now. You got to continue to win it every single day. And if you don't win on those game days, and if you have mistakes, don't be afraid to go put in Bohannon. And look, it could be a situation, Matt, where Jake is the best quarterback that they've got. It really could be the case.
Totally.
That could be the case here. But I think there's still this kind of wondering of, what do you got in Bohannon? You clearly liked him enough that you wanted to bring him in. If there's some big mistakes again, don't be afraid to go to him for one game.
Not all mistakes are equal, Mitch, in sports, and not all mistakes in life are equal, right? There's a varying degree of, okay, that was a little mistake. Learn from that and get better. Then there's, you don't hand the ball off in time on the jet sweep, then it becomes a broken play, and then you don't take care of the football, and it's a turnover. That's not the same as you're running a screen pass and the defensive tackle is on the ground when you make the read, and then when the ball's out of your hand, he pops up and make a play. Those are both mistakes, but one is very different from the other. And so we can't keep having you're getting tackled and you throw the ball like a muffed punt and that becomes a turnover. If that happens again, we can't just say, learn from that, Jake. We can't keep, there's been too many of those type of mistakes. And so for me, to answer the question, and you can answer it as well here on the show, because this is for you, Cougar Nation, 801-575-8255. What do you need to see from Retzlaff this week to feel good about him going forward? I need to see a first-half line of 200-plus yards, 2 touchdowns, and no turnovers. And if he does that and blows Wyoming away like they should, because they're a bad football team, quite frankly, if he does that, then okay, you can keep being the quarterback going forward. But if it's a mixed bag in the first half against Wyoming, I want to see Gary, because you have to find out if Jake is the best quarterback or not, to your point.
Cougar Nation brought to you by Central Bank. Central Bank, 133 years of trusted banking service, modern technology, and fast lending decisions. Cougar Nation, Central Bank, proud sponsor of Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio. Taking a break on the other side, we'll get to helmet stickers from the win over SMU. We'll also preview the matchup against Wyoming and take more of your phone calls, 801-575-8255. It's Cougar Nation here on KSL News Radio.